Hello and welcome to CBS analyst Emory Hunt and NFL writer Tyler Sullivan. Fellas, let's kick things off here with a big divisional matchup between the Chargers and the Chiefs. This will be the fourth meeting between quarterback wonders Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes. 3 of those games were decided by a game-winning score in the final minute, so it's no big surprise here that the spread is under a touchdown. Odds makers giving the Chiefs just a tad more than home field advantage at 4. The total's at 54.5. Emory, you're the czar of the playbook. Who has the edge here?
To me, I think the Chiefs have the edge, and I'm going to go into the playbook right now and break it down a little bit. When you look at the Chargers, they still have some issues in terms of running the football. They couldn't do that last weekend against the Raiders. Now they're going to be banged up at wide receiver. So now you are really going to be one-dimensional against a defense that has gotten significantly better in the offseason. They're playing better now. Usually they wait till about week 6 to start playing their best football on that side of the football. The Chiefs are in midseason form offensively. So I look for this to be a bad matchup right now in week number 2 for the Chargers. So I'm laying those 4 points with Kansas City.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but Patrick Mahomes seems to be on a mission. 5 touchdowns in the opener against the Arizona Cardinals. He's trying to prove to everybody, yeah, it doesn't really matter that we lost Tyreek Hill. I still can sling it to whoever's catching the football for me, and I think that's still going to be the case here at Arrowhead on Thursday. And like Emory was saying, I think they catch the Chargers on a short week. They're banged up. I just feel like that is a recipe for disaster here for the Los Angeles Chargers, not to mention that Arrowhead is one of the most important home field advantages that we have in the NFL. As a home favorite, the Chiefs are 6-1 against the spread in their last 7 games. It's just a dominating place to play, especially when you have a guy like Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback under center. So when you put all that together, for me, if it's less than a touchdown, 6.5, less than that, I'm definitely leaning towards Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. I think they roll in this one.
Yeah, Arrowhead, they're the loudest stadium in the NFL, hard place to play. But we head next to the NFC South. Both the Buccaneers and Saints face off after winning their Week 1 games. Tampa Bay is the favorite to win the division, but Brady seems to get, I don't want to call it the yips, but something about playing New Orleans since joining the Bucs. He's 0-4 in the regular season against them since going to Tampa. It's Brady's longest losing streak against any team in his career, and I think that's saying something alone. Brady and the Bucs favored by a field goal, total 44. Emory, how do you see this game playing out?
I mean, if history is of any indication, that means the Saints are going to beat them again. I do think that's going to be the case in this one. Defensively, they match up very well versus Tampa. Tampa, in my opinion, is going to need an encore performance from Julio Jones. And I think that's going to be a way they can have some success. But when you look at New Orleans, they showed you last weekend against Atlanta, they could win without their run game. Now their run game should be better going into this weekend. We saw Dallas have some success running the football, and I think that's one way they can help protect Jameis Winston, who had great protection in the fourth quarter where he led that comeback. I see the Saints taking this game as their Super Bowl. Like you said, they're 0-4. Look for them to be 0-5 and talk about the Bucs. The Saints plus the points here is the play.
Yep, I'm right there with you. Take the points, take the New Orleans Saints here. For whatever reason, I mean, we see this around the NFL, right? The Buccaneers playing the Saints, or whether it's the Patriots going down to Miami, the Colts going to Jacksonville. Just some places are tougher to play, and that seems to be the case here with the Buccaneers whenever they face off against the New Orleans Saints. It's just a tough sledding there for Tom Brady, and it's going to continue to be tough sledding for him in this game. Like Emory was saying, they match up defensively. The Saints do quite well against the Buccaneers, and you're looking at a Bucs offense now that still has a depleted offensive line on the interior, and they're going to be without Chris Godwin here, so you're going to need Herculean efforts from Michael Thomas, who historically has not played well against the New Orleans Saints. Julio Jones, Leonard Fournette, it's going to be all hands on deck. I just don't know if that's going to be the case. If we see the Jameis Winston that we saw in the fourth quarter of that game in Week 1, he completed 13 of 16, over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. If we see that more consistently through all 4 quarters against the Buccaneers, I don't know how you don't take the points here in New Orleans.
You know, they say you should never bet against Tom Brady unless he's playing the Saints, and so say our experts. Patriots at Steelers will look a little different this year. It's the first meeting with no Tom Brady or Big Ben under center since 1998. This is an interesting spread considering how both teams played in Week 1. The Pats looked discombobulated in their 20-7 loss in Miami, while the Steelers are riding high from their overtime win in Cincy. Vegas still giving the edge to the road team, Pats -1.5. Early tickets, however, coming in heavy on the Steelers money line. Tyler, are bettors onto something here by backing the home dogs in the spot?
Yeah, I mean, the place formerly known as Heinz Field is another area that is just unbelievable home field advantage for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So if you can get points here against an inferior opponent, in my opinion, in the Patriots, you absolutely do it. Obviously, they're going to be without TJ Watt. It's not a season-ending injury, but he's not going to be playing in this game. That would have been a game wrecker. I think that would have changed a lot of things here in this game in terms of where the spread was going to go and where the money was flowing in even more so. But the offensive line for the Pittsburgh Steelers obviously gets a lot of critiques going into the season. It was an issue in week one, but don't sleep on the issues for the New England Patriots along the offensive line too. I mean, that has been an issue for them all summer long in the preseason, and it was an issue in week one as well. It's a little bit of an underrated story in Foxborough. They're shifting offensive linemen around. Left tackles are now right tackles. Left tackles are now right tackles. And for me, you look at that and you saw issues already in week one against the Dolphins team that was really able to get after Mac Jones. And Mac Jones now banged up after week one, had to get x-rays after the game, dealing with some back injuries, is expected to play in this game. But is he 100%? It doesn't feel like that's going to be the case. And when you have an injured quarterback, a shaky offensive line, and there's already questions about the offensive play calling of Matt Patricia, for me, I'd feel much more comfortable taking some points and dealing with all the warts that the Pittsburgh Steelers have on the offensive line and rolling the dice with them.
Yeah, this one's going to get ugly like bowling shoes pretty quickly. When you think about Pittsburgh right away, you look at it's a big man's game and it's a speed game. And the Dolphins don't have the Dolphins, I'm sorry, was able to show that against New England. New England lacked speed and they lacked the power up front to deal with this downward pressure they're going to see from Pittsburgh. So this defense versus that Patriots offense is a big mismatch in this ball game. Take the Steelers in the points. Offensively, we saw them start to figure things out when they need to. They still have the luxury of having these big-time targets on the outside. The Patriots still have to show that they can cover on the perimeter. And I expect a big game for Mr. Trubisky. That sounds weird to say, but in this concept of them doing enough offensively while their defense really chokes out the Patriots, that's why I like the Steelers in this spot.
Bears fans getting a little shiver there hearing Trubisky doing well. All right, well, you know what they're good at in Baltimore? Crab cakes and football. Ravens looking for revenge this Sunday for last season's loss to the Dolphins. We also know the record means nothing or means a lot to John Harbaugh in this franchise. The Ravens won 6 straight home openers. Baltimore is a 3.5-point favorite, total 44 in a hook. Here, Tyler, do you see Baltimore's win streak continue?
You know, as much as I like crab cakes, I don't think it's going to happen this time. You know, for me, I actually like the Miami Dolphins here as kind of an underdog to pull off the upset here. I'll take the points. That'll be mostly the bet here. And for me, I really liked what I saw out of them in week one. You know, as much as the Patriots had their issues on offense and protecting the quarterback, they also played extremely well. Don't slight the Miami Dolphins here. They played a very good game, played within themselves, and were able to pull that thing out. Multiple turnovers after the quarterback forcing a strip sack fumble that turned into a touchdown. So for me, defensively, they're extremely interesting. A great secondary, obviously, have a great up-and-coming corner, a safety there. For me, I look at the Baltimore Ravens, and they had a little bit of a shaky outing in the opener. They were playing the New York Jets. They were going to get a win there. But Lamar Jackson, hardly efficient in that game. And then when you kind of peel back them over the course of their history under Lamar Jackson, they're 9-12 when they're a home favorite against the spread. It's a little bit shaky here. So for me, I'm actually going to lean on Tua Tagovailoa. It's another crazy thing to say as we're also backing Mitchell Trubisky, but I have faith that he's able to deliver the football to Tyreek Hill, to Jalen Waddle, and have their speed take care of the rest and go after that Ravens secondary.
I'm on the other side on this one, Tyler. I'm laying those points with Baltimore. A couple reasons why. They have the best quarterback in this game in Lamar Jackson. He's playing at home. You talked about them, how they open up at home. Historically, they do the same thing in openers in general. So the first 2 games is a real tough time to meet up with Baltimore. Plus, in order to beat Baltimore, you have to be able to throw the football deeper down the field. You have to be able to attack these guys vertically. And what they'll be able to do against Tua in this passing attack, they'll be able to stay in that short underneath zone, crowd those guys, and rally up, make a tackle. Now, the interesting matchup will be whether or not their rookie Demarion Williams, who I love coming out of Houston, can he step up and play a huge role in replace of Kyle Fuller, who is now out for the season with the injury that he suffered last week against the Jets. So for me, I think the Ravens still have enough defensively to smother this passing attack. And on the other side of the football, better conditions should equal better run game, which means the Dolphins will not be able to get off the field consistently like they were against New England. I like the Ravens in this spot, lay the points.
All right, guys. Well, my grandma still sends me a check every year on my birthday, and
Oh,
I need to
love
know
it.
where to spend it. Let's put it all on the line here. Tyler, what's your best bet?
Get the birthday money and put it on the Cincinnati Bengals. Lay the points. They're going to Dallas, and they're playing a Cowboys team that is absolutely limping into week 2. Obviously, Dak Prescott is the key story here. He's not going to be playing in this game, but they're going to be also down Tyron Smith. Don't sleep on that issue as well. That was an issue going into the year, and it's a continuing issue here. Obviously, they were able to, kind of tread water a little bit with Dak Prescott, even though the offense wasn't as prolific as we thought it was going to be. But now you're asking Cooper Rush to display an offensive performance against a Cincinnati Bengals team who was going to be extremely hungry after that overtime loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Joe Burrow throws 4 interceptions in the day. I think that they're going to go into this game extremely hungry, and they're going to roll here in Dallas.
I like that one, man. But I'm going to go on the other side. I'm going to go with the Falcons plus 10 against the Rams. Everyone's going to say, oh, the Rams are going to bounce back. They're going to do great. They got their loss out the way. But when you watch that game against Buffalo, the Bills beat them up front. That's still an issue for the Rams. The Falcons shut down the Saints' rushing attack. The Saints really had to win that game on the strength of the arm of Jameis Winston. If the Rams can't run the football, they're going to struggle. And they're going to struggle to try to run this football against the Falcons. And on offense, the Falcons, quiet as kept, have some weapons at receiver. They have a weapon at running back in Cordero Patterson, and they have the +1 aspect that the Rams struggled with last weekend in Josh Allen. They face in Marcus Mariota, who's also a very mobile guy. This one will be a lot closer than a 10-point spread. People are still hoping the Rams can pick up where they left off last season, but this is not the week to do so. So I take the Falcons and the points here against LA.
Thank you both so much. Let's go ahead and recap these picks. And look, there's a lot of similarities here. Tyler's saying, I don't know if you heard, but Patrick Mahomes is still that guy. And while it's not usually good to bet against Tom Brady, you got to back the Saints always against the Buccaneers. They like the Steelers here. Emery's saying it's going to get as ugly as bowling shoes. And then they're split here, Ravens and Dolphins. And Grandma, cover your ears, but I've got some money to put on these all on the line bets.
Welcome back to Sportsline. Continuing now with your NFL Week 2 picks. We bring in our Sportsline analyst, known as the Maestro, Larry Hartstein. The Rams host the Falcons, and both teams needed to make adjustments after their season opener. Atlanta looking to avoid a third straight 0-2 start. Last time that happened for the Falcons was 1974 to 1976. As for the Rams, their Week 1 loss was the second largest by a defending Super Bowl champ in a season opener. LA here is a 10.5-point favorite. Odds favor Matthew Stafford. He's 7-0 straight up in 3-4 ATS as a 10-plus point favorite in his career. Larry, does Stafford, you think, keep this streak going?
I think he does. I think the books are begging you to take the Falcons. They looked amazing on offense in Week 1. Should have beaten the Saints with, Pitts and Patterson and Drake London and Marcus Mariota. That offense was electric. And now you go to a Rams team that was one of the most disappointing teams in Week 1. They get blown out on their home field despite getting the turnovers against the Bills. So they want you to take the Falcons, but I'm not going to bite because teams that get those extra 3 days in the season opener are 16-4 against the spread in the last 10 years. The Rams had trouble even hearing their snap counts because of the Bills Mafia. That will not be a problem this week against the Falcons. They won't have to go to a silent count. And the other thing is the Bills got pressure with just 4 people. The Falcons are going to have to blitz. They blitzed at the 7th highest rate on Sunday against the Saints, and you cannot blitz Matthew Stafford just like you cannot blitz Patrick Mahomes. I'll lay the points.
Matthew Stafford's QBR against the blitz is absolutely phenomenal. But if you don't blitz him, it gets a little bit easier there. Okay, home opener for the 49ers taking on one of their biggest rivals, the Seahawks. This line opened up with San Francisco as 7.5-point favorites. That has since moved up to 10, over under at 42.5. Bettors don't have confidence in Kyle Shanahan's team after the monsoon misery in Chicago. Larry, is there any reason to back the Niners on this double-digit spread?
It looks like a huge letdown spot for the Seahawks after that Super Bowl type win last night with Russell Wilson coming back to Seattle. And the 49ers should be able to run the ball very effectively even without Elijah Mitchell, given how the Broncos just gashed the Seahawks defense. All of that said, Pete Carroll has an unbelievable history against the 49ers, Katie, which I'm sure you know all too well. Yes. I think it's 17-2 in the last 19 games straight up. And Geno Smith, this guy has covered 9 straight games. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's had 4 starts with the Seahawks, and he has not thrown an interception. So I think it's time that this guy gets some respect. He doesn't make mistakes. He's got great weapons in terms of Lockett and Metcalf and Rashad Penny and Noah Fant and even Disley, the other tight end. So if they do get down by 14 or by 17, I think Geno Smith can lead us to a backdoor cover. So despite the letdown spot, I'll take the points.
Well, Sunday is the first meeting between the Raiders and Cardinals since 2018, and that game kicking off at 4:25 Eastern on CBS. And this is a homecoming for Chandler Jones. He holds the Cardinals franchise record with 71.5 sacks, but now he's a Raider after signing with Las Vegas in the offseason. The Raiders are a 6-point home favorite. And before you ride with Vegas in this spot, no, they failed to cover each of their past 9 games as a favorite, longest streak since 2015-2016 season. But the Raiders won and covered 3 straight home openers, 2-0 since moving there to Vegas. Larry, do you think the luck stays on the Raiders' side?
I do, even though all the money has come in on the Raiders and this line is getting to a point where, if it gets to 7, there's going to be serious buyback on the Cardinals. But the Cardinals defense is in shambles. I mean, their secondary is a mess. Their linebackers could not cover anyone. I'm talking about Simmons and Vigil, and they couldn't do that against Kelsey. Darren Waller is going to have a massive game. But the angle I like the most is Derek Carr. He threw 3 interceptions for only the 3rd time in 128 career games. I went back and look, the last 2 times he did that, he came back the next week, 41 of 61, 423 yards, 3 TDs, no picks. I just think with Devontae Adams and Renfro and Waller, they're going to be too much for the Cardinals, and they take it by a touchdown.
You know what they say, good teams win, but great teams cover.
They
Bengals at Cowboys, a major swing in this spread as Dak Prescott was ruled out with an injured thumb. Dallas opened up as 2-point favorites, and that has completely flipped. Now they are 7.5-point dogs. That's a 9.5-point swing on a QB change. Larry, significant line movement like this, it can be tricky, especially when it crosses through 0. How are you handicapping this one?
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys look terrible even with Dak Prescott, so I don't think there's a huge downgrade to Cooper Rush. He played well last year in Minnesota, and, they actually won that game outright as big underdogs, but I don't see that here because I think the Bengals -5 in turnovers in week 1. Joe Burrow is not going to throw 4 picks again, and they still should have won the game. So I'm going to tease them down to -1.5. They basically just have to win the game. I hope T. Higgins can go. He has the concussion. The Cowboys offensive line is in shambles. They lost another offensive lineman in the loss to the Bucs. And I'm going to combine that teaser with 2 underdogs, the Commanders at 2.5 and the Panthers at 2.5. You tease both those teams up to 8.5, and I'll bet against the Lions and Giants covering huge numbers, and I'll bet on the Bengals just to cover 1.5.
I like it.
Well, time to go all on the line here, Larry, putting all your chips in on this one. What do you got for us on this one?
Well, the Patriots could not have looked worse in week 1 against Miami, and the Steelers pull off a big upset in Cincinnati. But if you look at those games, the Steelers were +5 in turnovers. They only had 13 first downs. The Patriots actually played the Dolphins fairly evenly, but they were -3 in turnovers. Now you lose T.J. Watt. This is one of the only guys in the NFL on the defensive side of the ball that matters to the point spread. I mean, a quarterback we know will move the line. T.J. Watt is a guy who matters to the line. The Steelers' defense is much worse without him. And how about the Steelers' defense on the field for 94 plays against the Bengals? I think the Patriots' offense will look competent, not explosive, but competent. And I think the Patriots will not start 0-2.
All right, that's our Larry Hartstein with your Week 2 NFL picks. We appreciate the time, Larry. All right, let's get you another recap of what Larry likes for Week 2. He's going with the Rams. He is not biting on Atlanta, +10.5, so stick with LA there. Then Seahawks and 49ers. Larry's sticking with Seattle. Then he likes Raiders -6 against the Cardinals, going with Cincinnati, teasing to -1.5, and his all on the line wager. Mark it in now, Patriots -1.5.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.